Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Today my friends at Star Ace have asked me to take a look at their Severus Snape 2.0 Sixth Scale Collectible Figure. Let's see how he turned out. Okay, first up as always is the packaging, and it's exactly what we've come to expect from Star Ace's Harry Potter line. You've got a nice Harry Potter logo up there, down at the bottom, in the midst of that shiny little isolated figure, is the identification of the character, as well as the verification that it is in fact a 6-scale figure and not a full-size Snape. You can see a bit of his robe there on the sides. That's a nice little thing to, a nice little motif to have. And of course the warnings that are on the back, as well as a few odd credits. Identification as the my favorite movie line. And but let's get into the guts of things and see what it's got.
All right, here it is, the Severus Snape 6-scale figure by Star Ace Toys, still in his clamshell packaging, exactly the way that it's going to come to you, except for, obviously, I've taken the liberty of removing certain plastic elements that are there to protect, say, the face, certain elements of the clothing. That's gone just because I wanted to make sure that you guys had a good solid look at the figure, uninterrupted, unmarred by any reflections, any glaring reflections such as those that you see over here, for instance. But the figure itself looks really solid, but one of the things that I want to bring up is, and I'm very careful to point this out when I'm looking at figures, one of the things that elevates your standard, your garden variety 6-scale figure above and beyond is the inclusion of a wide array of accessories, and Star Ace has certainly not held back here. If you were the sort of collector who is going to actually try to flesh out a scene in your collection, maybe by adding a customized, if you were the sort who would be able to build a table reminiscent of the potions laboratory in Hogwarts, then you have so many accessories here ready to go for just such an environment to have your Snape 6-scale figure live in. Starting off with, look at this. You've got the potion brewing pot along with the stand on which it rests, and the magical. I'm not known for my grace. The magical Bunsen burner that would just rest in there, just kind of like that, doesn't light up, but I think that's perfectly fine. I think everybody who's followed my channel at all knows that I'm not particularly fond of light-up features. They're cool and all, but not essential. Proper lighting for your figures is way more important than a light-up feature. You got a couple cool hands, including his wand holding hand. I'm guessing, let's get a good look at this guy here. Yeah, this will be one that you can use to, say, hold this vial of Veritaserum, or this flask of, I'm assuming that's supposed to be Polyjuice Potion. It's been a long time since I've paid close enough attention to the films to know the difference between those. You've also got this really, really cool little stand for these flasks that you could just like dangle in there, I'm thinking. And I'm sure that that's meant to be something specific, but it's escaping me right now. Feel free to call out in the comments if you know what it is. I'd like to know myself. If I'm not able to find out on my own later on down the line, then I welcome all input in that regard. This is something else that I'm gonna have to explore a little bit. My friend Guy is always pointing out that I need to be reading the instructions more. I'm sure that this thing has a purpose. I'm darned if I know what it is right now. One of the things that jumps out at me, though, is that they really, really did not hold back on the detail on Snape's wand. It looks really, really good. There's some nice detailing going on in there, and I'm really, really happy with it. The figure itself, the costuming looks great. For the first time, I'm going to part his robes and look at the costume underneath. Glorious, glorious dark blue color to that undercoat, to that surcoat there. And just overlaid by the black robes. They could have gone monochromatic. I'm assuming that they paid close enough attention to the costume elements from the film itself. Look at the detail on those buttons, looking really, really good. The hair itself, nicely matted. It looks very much like what his hair looked like in the later films. If I were to call it anything, I think they might have gone a little bit, in my opinion, a little bit dark in the circles around his eyes, as well as in the cleft of his chin and just below his lip. But I don't think that that's a deal breaker. I will be honest, when I took it out of the box, I thought the portrait was not at all spot on. But when I have it now here in proper lighting, where the lighting is coming at it from this angle, probably where it was meant to be lit from, you can really see the details. It's really popping out. I really think that it's a very nice likeness. I really dig the gloss in the eyes. Its reading is very, very lifelike. One of Star Ace's finer efforts. I'm really happy with this thing overall so far. So enough of my gabbing. Let's just go ahead and dig into the posing session because I want to see what this figure is capable of. All right, everyone, here is Severus Snape out of the box, ready to go. And we've got some work to do because there's a lot going on with this figure. First of all, just to call attention to a few things. Loving the navy, really dark blue qualities of this surcoat that he's wearing underneath his robe. There's just a nice, slight separation of tone that brings about that I really appreciate, rather than having it just be all black. So props to the costume designers, and good call, Star Ace. Good job just downsizing this fabric. It legitimately looks like the fabric should at this scale. Obviously we have all of these accessories here, but the issue that I'm going to have with this is that really, to display them properly, you kind of need a 6 scale table. So if you can go out there in an Etsy land or something like that and just try to find somebody who has one of those, then that would benefit you greatly. But for my purposes here today, all that I intend to do is get a really kick-ass wand-wielding pose with Severus Snape. One of my favorite parts of the Harry Potter films was when Harry, at the end of towards the end of the Deathly Hallows, returned to Hogwarts, and he went, when they were in the Great Hall, and Harry confronted Snape along with Professor McGonagall, and Professor McGonagall engaged Snape in combat. She attacked him. She attacked Snape, threw a curse at him, and he deflected it. He countered it. But what he did was he deflected it twice. He absorbed it and sent it back twice, once over each shoulder, knocking out the 2 Death Eaters behind him. I didn't notice that the first time through, and it actually took somebody pointing it out to me for me to realize it. And that, for me, is one of the coolest examples of that character showing really where his loyalties lie. If you had any questions at all going into it, if you didn't really know what the character's fate was going to be, where his loyalties lay, you don't really know for sure until the end. Or if you look at that for me is the strongest hint of Snape's actual character, or his qualities as a human being. So anyway, got his wand in his hand right now. This is going to be fun to play with because there's wire in this cloak, so I'm going to be playing with that a lot later. So, classic Alan Rickman Severus Snape pose, wand-wielding pose. He's going to have this arm completely outstretched, and we're going to have to tweak some things to make this look right. First of all, I'm going to twist that hand around, do that little trick that I do with the wrist pegs. The way that the wrist pegs work, you can actually bend the hand down, then rotate the wrist peg that way. Don't try this at home, folks. You can't really see them because of the robe, but if you bend the wrist peg in a certain direction, then once you get it all the way bent as far as it will go, you can rotate the hand and also rotate the wrist peg, just depending on where you apply pressure. Now, speaking of pressure, be very, very careful with how you apply that pressure, because you don't want to break those wrist pegs. Time and experience will help you a lot with that. That stand went down pretty far. I'm going to go ahead and pull this stand out of the picture because I think it's inhibiting me more than it's helping me. All right, so now typically, yeah, I'm going to just go ahead and have him straight arm that thing. I don't usually do straight arms, but for what I have in mind, I think it works better. Now, the downside to robes for me has always been you don't get to really see where the feet are or where the legs are. It makes it difficult to position your legs. Going to do a tread check. Look at those. Nice. Bet those aren't leather soled. And just trying to do a test of the range of motion. Not a lot, but just enough. You're not going to want to do super wide stances, but can you see Severus Snape doing the splits? I can't. I'm going to go ahead and move this leg out, because in this classic casting pose that I have in mind, that's kind of how he does it. He steps forward with his left leg. His right arm goes out. This arm comes back and up. Sort of akin to a fencing posture. Now, I am doing this from memory, so bear with me if I do some, if I screw something up. This hand could allow for a little bit more finesse. And I'm just trying to achieve some balance right here, right now. I think I'm just going to put up an image right there of, I'll try to find it later, but I'll find an image of Snape actually casting a spell with his wand, or launching a curse, or however you want to say it. And you can judge from there whether or not I've hit it, if my memory is good. Okay. Interestingly enough, I think this is going to be able to balance on its own without any help from me, eventually. I'm going to just, see what I did there? I just kind of like leaned him into it just a little bit more. God, interesting qualities of Alan Rickman's face, the portrait here, is that Rickman's face is sort of amorphous throughout the Harry Potter series. Well, that has with all people, you know, gains weight, loses weight, what have you. And he was already old by the time this film happened. These films happened. But I'll also show a couple of images up here of his hair and how it changed throughout the course of the film. It was it alternated between matted and a little bit of a wave, somewhat unkempt. For me, I kind of like the way that this hair is going, because J.K. always described Snape as having like this oily quality to his hair, like greasy quality to his hair, almost unclean. I'm going to put that back on the stand for a second and just step back and admire. Just kind of get a judge here. That's going to be kind of good. Thing is, I feel like Harry Potter characters do this swish and flick thing, right? So maybe, just maybe, I think that having the hand come over the top, and see, this is where it would be nice to have just a little bit more of a, instead of having his hand just regularly gripping, I would much rather see one with the finger extended out so that you could actually point with the wand a little more than just like holding it like you were just holding a divining rod or something. But this is just about as close as I'm going to be able to get it. Check to see what that bend is. I want that bend to be a little bit more off to the side. Like he's twisting the wand, performing some intricate gesture. And I'm not going to have it pointing down, just ever so slightly up. Yeah, that's doing it for me. Okay, now, as to this robe, just feeling it out. You've got wire here, so that will enable you to just create some decent curves. Right out of the box, it's a little bit unkempt, much like, you know, rooted hair. But I'm going to twist this around. You can pull it down just to see how it's kind of billowing up there at the top. That's unattractive. So maybe I didn't have the right idea there. Just have it wave a little bit at the bottom instead of going full on back, like the wind is blowing. Or maybe somebody's casting a curse at him as well. I don't know. But let's just kind of keep this sleeve back, because I want this robe to come back behind him so that we can see that lovely blue surcoat. And it really is awesome. Get a little closer to me. Now, you can see here with the hair that it's fine. You know, I mean, you could feasibly want to mat it down a little bit more, and I think that you wouldn't be wrong to want to do that. But if you also wanted to leave it just as it is out of the box, I think that's also fine. Could use a little bit of work to pull it back from his face a little bit more if you wanted to reveal more of that portrait. look at how well that's styling. I mean, I think it's not frizzing out on me at all. It's lifting up ever so slightly at the bottom, but that's fine because this is kind of an action pose. And if you really want to go crazy, you can add this to it. I'm not going to do that, and I'll tell you why. Just by... You can see already that it's really weighing it down. This is just a very heavy piece for this tiny wand. And I'm not confident enough in the wand's ability to maintain its shape over time. I feel like the weight of this effect on the wand will cause that plastic to bend over time. I don't know. I'm no plastics engineer. Yeah, I feel like that's just about got it. I wish that this hand had a little bit more character. Let's see what. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that's just got a little bit more flair, kind of like a fencer at work, which is kind of how Alan Rickman would do it. Anyway, I may tweak this a little bit more once it gets into photography, but I think for now, that's a pretty admirable Severus Snape wand-wielding pose. Probably tweak the robes just a little bit when I get it into photography, but that's about it. Okay, on to the photo gallery.
If I were to be 100% honest, I'd have to say that I really didn't expect a whole lot out of this figure. And to that end, I was greatly surprised by what I got. Especially in terms of the costume. I mean, just look at those subtle variations. I know that I've talked about them a lot, but they really bear mentioning. They downscale nicely. The colors are spot on. Everything about it just reads really, really well. If I were to nitpick, and nitpicking is exactly what this is, I would suggest that if you're going to go for wires in a cloak like this, then go all in and give us some wires that will hold the costume in place and allow you to pose it. And while I did wind up liking the portrait more than I thought I would, I have to admit that it does have a little bit of Kieran Hines in there on top of all of that Alan Rickman. But if you have the capacity to light it properly from above and a little bit to your right as you're looking at the figure, then it will come across quite nicely. That's about it, other than to say that I'm really enjoying watching Star Ace's Harry Potter line evolve, and I'm looking forward to seeing more offerings from them in the future in Sixth Scale. I hope you enjoyed the video, and until next time, be good to your plastic. Hey, look at you, made it to the end and everything. If you liked what you saw, hit that subscribe button. If you really are hardcore, then hit that notification bell, and you'll be sure to know every time that I post a new video right away. Thanks as always for watching, and until next time, be good to your plastic.